Get out of here, you don't belong! Please get in, sir, let's go.
The grand ballroom at the Manhattan Crown Hotel glittered with crystal chandeliers as hundreds of guests gathered for Ethan Carter's engagement party. Expensive suits, champagne, live violin music, it was the biggest night of his life. Then the elevator doors opened, and an elderly man in a faded gray coat quietly stepped inside carrying a small gift box. It was Frank Carter, Ethan's father. Frank had driven 5 hours from upstate New York just to surprise his son. His old shoes were dusty, and his coat looked completely out of place among Manhattan's elite. Before he could even smile, Ethan noticed him. His face changed instantly. "Dad, what are you doing here?" Frank smiled warmly. "I came to congratulate you." Several guests turned to look. Ethan walked over quickly and whispered, "You should have told me before coming. I wanted it to be a surprise." "It is." But it wasn't happiness in Ethan's voice. His fiancée's wealthy parents were standing nearby, watching everything. Embarrassed, Ethan forced a smile and said loudly, "Security, this gentleman isn't on the guest list." Frank froze. "Ethan? I'm sorry, Dad, but tonight isn't the right time." The security guards politely escorted Frank toward the exit while the ballroom became silent. Frank didn't argue. He simply placed a small gift box on a nearby table and walked away. Inside the box was a handwritten card. "No matter how successful you become, never forget where home is." Nobody opened it. Outside, rain began falling as Frank sat quietly on a bench across the street. He wasn't angry. He was heartbroken. Just then, a black luxury sedan stopped beside him. The driver stepped out. "Mr. Carter?" Frank looked up. "Yes?" "Mr. Ryan Bennett asked me to bring you." Frank smiled. "Tell Ryan I'm coming." 20 minutes later, the engagement party suddenly stopped. The hotel manager rushed onto the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, our building owner has just arrived." Everyone stood. The doors opened. Ryan Bennett, one of New York's youngest billionaire CEOs, entered the ballroom. Behind him walked Frank. Ethan's face turned white. Ryan walked straight to Frank before turning toward the crowd. He smiled. "I'd like everyone to meet the man who taught me everything about integrity." Then he placed a hand on Frank's shoulder. "This is my father." The room exploded with confusion. Ethan whispered, "Dad, what is happening?" Ryan looked at him. "Your father adopted me when I was 17. Silence. Ryan explained that years earlier, after losing his parents, he had been homeless. Frank, who worked as a school janitor, took him in without asking for anything in return. Frank never adopted him for money. He simply refused to let a child sleep on the street. Ryan continued, "Everything I own today began because one man believed I deserved another chance." He looked at Frank. "I've spent years trying to repay him." Ethan felt tears filling his eyes. He had spent years hiding his father because he thought Frank was ordinary. He never knew his father had quietly changed someone else's life forever. Ryan turned toward the hotel manager. "There's one more thing." He held up the engagement contract. "This entire hotel belongs to my company." Then he looked directly at Ethan. "And anyone who humiliates my father is no longer welcome as our business partner." The wealthy investors who had been negotiating with Ethan immediately stepped back. Within seconds, the deal Ethan had worked on for months collapsed. Not because Ryan wanted revenge. Because nobody wanted to do business with a man who publicly disrespected his own father. Ethan slowly walked toward Frank. He fell to his knees. "I'm sorry." Frank gently lifted him back up. "Don't kneel." Ethan cried. "I was ashamed of your clothes." Frank smiled sadly. "You were never ashamed of my clothes." He paused. "You were ashamed of my sacrifice." The ballroom became silent. Ryan picked up the forgotten gift box and handed it to Ethan. He finally opened it. Inside was the old family photograph from 20 years ago, and a handwritten note. Success means nothing if the people who loved you first no longer recognize your heart. A year later, Ethan canceled the luxury wedding and opened a scholarship foundation in Frank's name for children who couldn't afford school. People thought Ryan gave Frank power. The truth was much simpler. Frank had been powerful long before anyone knew his name, because changing one life can become the greatest revenge against a world that judges people by their appearance.